They say no queen ever sat on the throne of Valedorn without a coronation. But there was one, the one they erased. Her name is forbidden in every royal record. Her portrait was burned. Her bloodline officially ended. And yet, her room is still locked untouched deep beneath the east wing of the palace. Servants whisper that the candles in her chamber never stop flickering, though no one has been inside for over 200 years. The throne hall, they say, is still sealed with wax at the corners, as if holding back something more than time. Some believe she was a shadow queen crowned in secret, ruling through others, before being betrayed and erased. Others believe she never died. But one thing is certain. Every time a new monarch is crowned, her name is heard, faintly, in the wind that rushes through the old marble corridors. This is the story they never wanted you to hear. The tale of Queen Seraphine of Valedorn, the woman who vanished before her crown touched her head, and whose presence never left. They say every kingdom has its crown, and every crown has its secret. But in the forgotten kingdom of Valedorn, buried in snow and silence for over 2 centuries, the deepest secret was never an object, but a woman. A woman with a name they weren't allowed to speak aloud. Seraphine. She was born under a blood moon, in the final hours of winter, as the bells of the capital rang for the death of King Alaric III. It is said that when she cried for the first time, the fire in the palace hearth dimmed, not out of sorrow, but reverence. Her mother, Lady Marielle, was not royal by blood, but royal by desire, one of the king's favored courtiers, known for her silence and silver eyes. She died hours after childbirth, and the child was passed on to the hidden nursery in the southern wing, a part of the palace the public was told had been sealed off due to rot. But it was not rot they feared. It was a future. Seraphine was not raised like a princess. She was trained like a weapon. She learned 8 languages by the time she was 12. She studied ancient royal customs long erased from law. She practiced silence like it was a vow. And most of all, she was taught not to exist. No portraits. No public ceremonies. No celebrations on her birthday. To the world, the heir of Valedorn was Prince Renaud, the king's nephew, charming, predictable, and born into the spotlight. But deep beneath the corridors, in rooms lined with candlelit mirrors and velvet-draped silence, Seraphine sat with her tutors while royal ministers debated trade deals above her head. According to a letter found decades later in the ruins of the South Wing, the king feared Seraphine's mother's blood, too ancient. Too close to the witches of Red Veil. And yet he could not bear to destroy the girl. So he chose something worse, to hide her from history. But kingdoms are not ruled by paper or crowns. They are ruled by whispers. And in time, the whispers came. Servants spoke of a pale girl watching them from high windows no one could reach. Gardeners heard humming in the rose maze at dawn a melody no one had sung since the old queen's death. One night, a young scribe confessed, under torture, that he had seen a second royal seal, one carved not in gold, but in bone, and it bore the letter S. He was executed for treason. But from that day, the name Seraphine became a ghost that moved through Valedorn's walls. The question, then, was no longer did she exist? The question became what was she being prepared for? Some believe she was a failsafe, a shadow queen, trained in silence, waiting for the kingdom to collapse. Others believed she was a mistake the crown tried to contain, but failed. And a few, the boldest of the court, whispered what no one dared write down. That Seraphine was not merely heir to a throne, but to a curse. The coronation was never announced. There were no trumpets, no parades, no embroidered banners fluttering across the capital. And yet, on the first full moon of the equinox, 32 carriages entered the palace gates just before midnight. All the lords thought they had been summoned for a secret council, perhaps a declaration of war or a royal marriage. They arrived in silence, cloaked in black, their family sigils hidden beneath grey traveling cloaks. But when they entered the inner court, they were handed candles. Unlit. And were told, the light will choose who may speak. The east wing of the palace had been sealed for decades. No records. No foot traffic. No patrols. Even the stone had grown cold, mossed over with time. But that night, the guards opened the heavy gate not with keys, but with blood. A drop from the High Chancellor himself, cut across the palm and pressed against the iron sigil above the arch. Inside, the halls were pristine, dustless, prepared. Candles lit themselves as they passed. The velvet banners bore no royal crest, only a singular symbol, an eye within a crown, surrounded by 12 thorns. That was not the sigil of King Alaric, nor of Prince Renaud. It was hers. Seraphine's. At the center of the inner sanctum was a mirror throne made of polished obsidian, not gold, reflecting the room but not the one who sat upon it. She waited there, in a black gown stitched with dying lilies, her face veiled in gray silk, her hands gloved in white. No crown. No attendants. Just silence. One by one, the nobles were instructed to kneel, to swear fealty. But as each bent their knee, something began to change. The candles flickered violently. A deep hum, like stone grinding beneath water, echoed through the chamber. And for every vow sworn, one of the nobles collapsed. Not dead, but asleep, eyes open, lips moving, murmuring words no one could understand. By the 7th oath, panic rose. A baron drew his sword, shouting that this was a coup or ritual, not a coronation. He didn't make it 2 steps before his blade turned red-hot and shattered in his grip. Seraphine never moved. She never spoke. But her gloved hands began to tremble. Then, the great mirror throne began to crack, not from pressure, but from inside. The glass webbed outward like frost on steel, and every reflection in the room turned slightly wrong. One noble was seen missing his shadow. Another's reflection wept blood though his real face was dry. And in the cracked shards behind the throne, Seraphine's reflection stood, smiling, though she herself remained still. The High Chancellor rushed forward to stop the ritual. He called out her name, loudly, boldly. Seraphine Myriel. You were never meant to rule. And that's when she finally moved. She rose slowly, pulled the gray veil from her face. And what they saw was not youth, not beauty, not rage, but age. A face that looked as though it had lived 100 years, worn, lined, eyes sunken, and yet glowing faintly, as if lit from within. She whispered only one word. You're too late. And with that, the throne shattered, sending black shards in every direction, but instead of cutting skin, they melted into the floor like ink. The chamber began to shake. Walls wept water. The sky above the palace turned dark, not with clouds, but with silence itself. By dawn, the east wing had vanished. Not crumbled. Not burned. Gone. When the sun rose over Valedorn that morning, the east wing of the palace no longer cast a shadow. It was as if it had never existed, no walls, no windows, not even a foundation. Just an open field of dew-covered stone, perfectly smooth, perfectly cold. The king's guards searched for hours. Then days. Then years. But not a single brick of that wing was ever recovered. Of the 32 nobles summoned that night, only 3 returned. 1 had gone blind. 1 had lost the ability to speak. And the last, a young heir named Lucien of Car, spoke of a throne made of mirrors that swallowed time, before vanishing from his estate a week later, leaving behind nothing but a single white glove, embroidered with the letter S. No bodies were found. No explanations were given. And yet, a royal decree was issued the very next day. The line of Seraphine Myriel is hereby severed. Her name is to be stricken from all records, all hymns, all stone. Any mention shall be considered treason. The east wing is to be declared holy ground, unspoken, unvisited, unremembered. Signed by King Alaric IV, with the royal seal of bone. But secrets never stay buried in kingdoms built on silence. Over the next century, strange events plagued the royal bloodline. Every 3rd queen died childless. Every firstborn daughter of the court was born with silver eyes and a whispering habit they could never explain. Mirrors in the palace cracked for no reason. And on the night of every coronation, the candles in the eastern corridor would flicker even though no corridor remained. In one chilling account, a young maid cleaning the royal chapel discovered a sealed door beneath the altar. It had no handle. No hinges. Just an engraving. All crowns end where she begins. She tried to report it. By morning, she was gone. No trace. Only her broom, leaning perfectly upright against the chapel wall. Later, in the palace's forbidden archives, a letter was found and signed, undated, but written in the exact script of the old royal calligrapher. She was never crowned. Because the throne was never hers. It was hers to erase. Some say Seraphine was not merely the hidden heir, but a curse born from royal sin, a judgment from whatever powers the monarchy had long tried to suppress. Others claim she was the last true ruler, a queen of the old ways, silenced by cowards, and now haunting every crown that dared forget her. But one tale persists more than any other. One whispered among servants, passed between guards, spoken behind trembling lips. She still lives. Not as flesh. Not as ghost. But as a presence in every vow broken. Every crown worn with doubt. Every mirror that shows more than a reflection. In the current royal palace, rebuilt and renovated a dozen times since the vanishing, there remains a hallway that architects can't account for. It appears only at dusk. Lined with no portraits, only glass. And if you walk to the very end, you may see a figure. Tall. Veiled. Facing away. Standing in front of a shattered obsidian throne. But she never turns. She never speaks. And if you call her name, she will simply raise one gloved hand and point behind you. They say if you look back, you never look away again. Her name was never written. But it was never forgotten. She was the queen who was never crowned. And never died.